Manchester United. May 8, 2013, Sir Alex Ferguson announces his retirement. 4 days later, he stands on the Old Trafford pitch for the final time, trophy in hand, surrounded by 75,000 fans. 13 Premier League titles, 2 Champions League trophies. The greatest manager in football history retiring at the peak. United generate over $500 million annually. They are untouchable. May 12, 2024. Old Trafford's roof leaks during a match against Arsenal. Water drips onto the pitch. Fans record it on their phones. It trends on social media. Rival supporters mock them in the comments. Same stadium, 11 years later. 7 managers since Ferguson. Over £1 billion spent on transfers. 0 league titles to show for it. How? David Moyes inherited champions, gone in 10 months. Louis van Gaal delivered 1 FA Cup, surrounded by the most boring football Old Trafford had ever witnessed. Jose Mourinho brought trophies and left a toxic dressing room. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer promised nostalgia and delivered entertainment before collapse. Ralf Rangnick was a 6-month organisational disaster. Erik ten Hag added cup titles, but wild inconsistency. October 23, 2011. Manchester City 6, Manchester United 1. At Old Trafford, Mario Balotelli lifts his shirt. Why always me? The answer was visible on the scoreboard. From that moment, the power shifted across Manchester. It never shifted back. Champions League group stage exits. Finishing outside the top 4, repeatedly. Europa League football. Each failure another crack in the foundation. But the real rot runs deeper. The Glazer family systematically drained resources while neglecting infrastructure. Old Trafford, once England's most feared venue, now has a leaking roof, outdated facilities, and deferred maintenance everywhere. The training ground hasn't seen meaningful investment in years. Recruitment has been scattergun, buying famous names without any coherent plan. They haven't won the league since 2013. Sir Jim Ratcliffe's investment offers hope, but you can't repair a decade of structural damage overnight. United remain a marketing giant generating massive revenue. On the pitch, unrecognizable. The biggest club in world football proved nobody is too big to fall. Nottingham Forest. 2 European Cups, back-to-back, 1979 and 1980. Say that again. Nottingham Forest won the European Cup twice in consecutive years. They beat Liverpool, Hamburg, and conquered Europe's elite. Dominant performances. Brian Clough, a manager who found a second-division club drinking away its failures in 1975, and within 4 years had them lifting the European Cup. The City Ground hosted Real Madrid. Europe's elite travelled to Nottingham and lost. John Robertson, Trevor Francis, Peter Shilton, champions who conquered a continent. Clough lifts one last League Cup in 1989 before the slide begins. 4 years later, Nottingham Forest are relegated. The institutional knowledge leaves with him. Then it got worse, catastrophically worse. 3rd tier by 2005. League One. The club that defeated Hamburg in a European Cup final was playing Yeovil Town on Tuesday nights. 23 years outside the top flight followed. Managers came and went. Owners promised revivals. Nothing changed. The City Ground became a second-tier venue where dreams went to die. Steve Cooper secures promotion in 2022. Forest returned to the Premier League after 23 years. But the chaos was just beginning. Nuno Espirito Santo arrives in December 2023 and delivers a miracle. 7th place, European qualification for the first time in 30 years. The City Ground buzzing again. Champions League football within touching distance. But behind the scenes, relationships fracture. Owner Evangelos Marinakis, a volatile Greek shipping magnate known for his hands-on approach, brings in Edu Gaspar as global head of football. Nuno feels undermined, sidelined. The manager who delivered everything suddenly finds himself battling not opponents, but his own hierarchy. August 2025. Nuno publicly admits his relationship with Marinakis has changed. It's not the same. Where there's smoke, there's fire. Everyone knows what's coming. September 9, 2025. 3 games into the new season, Nuno is sacked. Ange Postecoglou, fresh from winning the Europa League with Tottenham, is appointed within hours. Postecoglou promises attacking football, Ange ball at the City ground. But the dream dies faster than it begins. 8 games, 0 wins, 2 draws, 6 defeats. The defence crumbles, 11 goals conceded from set pieces alone, more than double any other Premier League side. Boos echo around the City ground after a 3-0 home defeat to Chelsea. Marinakis storms out of his seat before full-time. 39 days after being appointed, Postecoglou is sacked, the second shortest managerial tenure in Premier League history. Forest announced his dismissal 19 minutes after the final whistle. 3 days later, Sean Dyche walks through the door, a former Forest trainee returning home. Marinakis wants stability, pragmatism, survival. The club that won Europe twice now desperately fights to stay in the Premier League. European champions reduced to managerial chaos, 3 managers in 6 weeks, clinging to stability. Leeds United. Elland Road, April 2001. Leeds United 3, Deportivo La Coruña 0. Champions League semi-finals beckon. Rio Ferdinand commands the defence. Harry Kewell terrorises Europe's best. They're playing beautiful, expansive football, worlds away from their dirty Leeds reputation under Don Revie. The future is limitless. Then, someone checked the bank account. Everything, the squad, the stadium expansion, the transfers, was built on one assumption. Champions League revenue would keep flowing. When they failed to qualify in 2002, the entire financial structure collapsed in real time. Rio Ferdinand, sold to Manchester United for £30 million. A British record fee that barely dented the debt. Harry Kewell, gone. Robbie Fowler, gone. Jonathan Woodgate, gone. They sold everything that wasn't nailed down. It wasn't enough. 2004, relegated from the Premier League. 2007, relegated to League One. Champions League to third-tier football in 6 years. They were hours, literally hours from complete liquidation. Elland Road, once intimidating for Barcelona and Milan, hosted Hartlepool United. The stands were half empty for League One fixtures. Ownership chaos continued. Constant takeovers, broken promises, false dawns. Marcelo Bielsa arrived in 2018. His intense football brought promotion in 2020. 16 years after relegation. Premier League stability proved elusive. Relegated again in 2023, promoted again in 2025. They're back. Just another club fighting to stay up, haunted by ghosts of what they almost were. Leeds borrowed against tomorrow to pay for today. Tomorrow arrived. The bill was catastrophic. Arsenal. Arsene Wenger sits in the away dugout at the Hawthorns. March 18th, 2017. West Brom 3, Arsenal 1. Arsenal finish outside the top 4 for the first time in 21 years. Their defining streak is over. Wenger stares straight ahead, emotionless. He already knows what's coming. Wenger out was spray-painted on stadium walls. Planes flew banners over matches. Fans protested outside the Emirates. The man who built the Invincibles had become the enemy. Rewind to 2004. Arsenal go 38 games unbeaten. Win the league without losing once. Thierry Henry, Dennis Bergkamp, Patrick Vieira. Untouchable. Then the Emirates move changed everything. Financial sustainability over glory. That was the trade. Sell your stars, Cesc Fabregas, Robin van Persie, Samir Nasri, to fund the new stadium. Develop youth instead of buying world-class talent. It saved them from Leeds United's debt implosion, but killed their competitive edge. Between 2005 and 2020, they won 3 FA Cups. Significant, yes, but while they celebrated domestic cups, Chelsea won the league, Manchester City won the league, Leicester won the league. Banter era became reality. The 4th place trophy, predictable European exits, annual humiliations. Finishing 4th stopped being a disappointment and became the target. Wenger left in 2018. 22 years, 3 league titles. 0 in his final 14 years. Mikel Arteta has them challenging again. Finished 2nd twice. Close, but never close enough. Over 20 years without a league title now. For a club of Arsenal's resources and history, even without relegation, the decline is undeniable. Still relevant enough to remember what they lost, perhaps the cruelest type of fall. Wimbledon FC. Wembley Stadium, May 14, 1988. Liverpool, the most dominant force in English football, face Wimbledon in the FA Cup final. Liverpool are massive favourites. Wimbledon are South London upstarts. Unfashionable, physical, chaotic. The Crazy Gang. Final score, Wimbledon 1, Liverpool 0. Lawrie Sanchez scores. Dave Besant saves a penalty. The underdogs shock the world. One of football's greatest fairy tales. Fast forward 14 years. May 2002. An FA commission grants permission for Wimbledon to relocate to Milton Keynes, 56 miles from South London. For business. A new town wanted a football club, so they bought one. English football doesn't work this way. Clubs are community institutions, not franchises. But it happened anyway. Supporters were devastated. Most refused to follow the club to Milton Keynes. They did something extraordinary instead. Formed AFC Wimbledon. Started from scratch, 9th tier of English football. Built it back themselves. Wimbledon FC moved to Milton Keynes in September 2003. Played one season as Wimbledon before becoming Milton Keynes Dons in 2004. Changed the name, changed the badge, changed the colours. Erased the history. Meanwhile, AFC Wimbledon climbed. 5 promotions in 9 years. Back into the Football League by 2011. By 2020, they'd returned to a new plough lane, near their original home. Back where they belong. The original Wimbledon didn't fall from grace. It was killed. But its soul survived because fans refused to let it die. They rebuilt their club from nothing, while the corporate entity that stole their name languishes in League One, a club without roots or history. Football is more than a legal entity. AFC Wimbledon proved that. Portsmouth. How does an FA Cup winner collapse into League Two in just 3 years? How does a club playing European football end up hours from extinction? Portsmouth's story answers both questions. May 17, 2008. Nwankwo Kanu scores the winner against Cardiff at Wembley. Peter Crouch, Sol Campbell, Glenn Johnson celebrate with 35,000 travelling fans. Portsmouth are FA Cup champions. Days later, they qualify for the UEFA Cup. The triumph masks what's coming. 9 days after lifting the trophy, ownership transfers to Suleiman Al Fahim, an Emirati businessman claiming enormous wealth. He was a fraud. In 2018, he was convicted and sentenced to 5 years in jail for stealing £5 million from his wife to fund the purchase of Portsmouth. Before prison, he sold Portsmouth to another owner who couldn't pay. That owner defaulted on a loan, triggering administration. October 2009. Player wages go unpaid. December 2009. Second consecutive month without pay. February 2010. Portsmouth enter administration. A 9-point penalty follows. Despite the financial chaos, Portsmouth somehow reach the 2010 FA Cup final. But they're already relegated, already in administration, already facing the points deduction. They play Chelsea at Wembley knowing their Premier League status is over. They lose 1-0. Football at its most tragic. The 2009-10 season had 4 different owners. 4! The next season brought Vladimir Antonov, later arrested and charged in connection with Lithuanian and Latvian bank fraud. February 2012. Second administration in 2 years. Another 10-point deduction. The entire squad leaves. Mass exodus. They go on a 23-match winless streak. 23 matches without a victory. 3 relegations followed. 2010, 2012, 2013. Premier League to League Two in 3 years. They were hours from liquidation. Complete extinction. April 2013. The Portsmouth Supporters Trust buys the club. Fans saved it. They're back in the Championship now after promotions in 2017 and 2024, but the scars are permanent. Portsmouth's collapse proves that fraudulent ownership can destroy anything, regardless of recent success.
Sunderland. The Netflix cameras are rolling. It's the 2017-18 season. Sunderland are in the Championship after relegation from the Premier League. The documentary crew expects to capture a promotion push, maybe some playoffs drama. Instead, they film a complete organisational meltdown. Sunderland, six-time English champions who spent 68 consecutive top-flight seasons from 1890 to 1958, finish dead last in the Championship. Relegated again. 2 consecutive relegations, Premier League to League One in 24 months. The cameras captured everything. Overpaid players who stopped caring. Executives making disastrous decisions. The 49,000-seat Stadium of Light, one of England's largest, hosting third-tier football. Fans enduring public humiliation while the world watched. Sunderland Till I Die became compulsive viewing for a brutal reason. It was real. A club with history and infrastructure imploding through pure incompetence. Between 2007 and 2017, they survived in the Premier League despite catastrophic recruitment and constant managerial chaos. Roy Keane, Steve Bruce, Martin O'Neill, Paolo Di Canio, Gus Poyet, Dick Advocaat, Sam Allardyce, David Moyes, each failed to bring stability. They became specialists in last-minute escapes until their luck ran out. Unlike Leeds' debt crisis or Portsmouth's fraud, Sunderland's fall came from organised incompetence. Terrible signings, awful contracts, managerial turnover creating a toxic failure culture. But the story doesn't end in darkness. Against all odds, they clawed back, secured Championship promotion in 2022. Then, in May 2025, with 2 stoppage-time goals in the playoff final against Sheffield United, Sunderland returned to the Premier League after an 8-year exile. Tom Watson's 95th-minute winner at Wembley. Pure redemption. The Netflix documentary immortalised their fall. Now, their comeback completes the arc. From the depths of League One to the Premier League. 6-time champions. Finally home. Blackburn Rovers. Alan Shearer scores 34 goals. Jack Walker's millions fund the dream. Blackburn Rovers pip Manchester United to the 1995 Premier League title on the final day. Ewood Park erupts. Against all odds, the small Lancashire club are champions of England. Walker's death in 2000 removed their financial foundation. The spending didn't stop. Debt mounted. Reality was delayed, not avoided. An Indian poultry company called Venky's buys Blackburn in 2010. They have zero football knowledge. Within 2 years, catastrophic decisions, managerial chaos, and disconnected leadership send them to the Championship. Relegated in 2012, they've never returned. Over a decade in the second tier now, financial constraints, protests, instability. Ewood Park went from hosting title celebrations to empty seats and apathy. Their academy produces talent, then sells it immediately to fund operations. No ambition, no plan, just survival. One golden moment funded by one man's vision, zero long-term strategy. Now they're a forgotten Premier League champion, marooned in the Championship. Younger fans don't remember their title. Older fans can't comprehend how it all disappeared so fast, from champions to Championship mediocrity, and never even visiting the big boys for a season either.
Everton. They haven't been relegated yet, but every season feels like borrowed time. Everton, 9-time English champions, the 4th most successful club in history, are fighting for Premier League survival. Again. The School of Science have become relegation battlers. The 1980s were glorious. Howard Kendall's teams won 2 league titles, 1985, 1987, and the 1985 European Cup Winners' Cup. They were England's best. Neville Southall, Peter Reid, Gary Lineker, genuine world-class talent. In 1985-86, they finished second to Liverpool by mere points.
Title contenders who belonged at the top. Then came the slow death, gradual, painful decline over decades. The Premier League era, which Everton helped found in 1992, brought occasional European campaigns but never sustained excellence. The 2010s and 2020s brought financial mismanagement, terrible transfers, managerial turnover. Points deductions for financial breaches followed. The promised Bramley Moore Dock Stadium faces delays and funding issues. Meanwhile, across Stanley Park, Liverpool dominate globally. Everton fight for 15th place. They've never been relegated from the Premier League. That record is their last remaining source of pride. It feels more like luck than achievement. Every season, the gap between Everton and the bottom three shrinks. Death by 1,000 cuts is worse than sudden collapse. At least sudden collapse ends the suffering. Everton's decline just continues, year after year, with no end visible. Title contenders reduced to this. At least the Friedkin Group takeover and David Moyes' beautiful return offers some hope and optimism that the darkest days are well and truly over.
Newcastle United. January 1996. Newcastle United are 12 points clear at the top of the Premier League. 12. Kevin Keegan's entertainers are playing the most exciting football England has seen in years. Their first title since 1927 seems inevitable. Then they collapse. Manchester United close the gap, week by week, point by point. The pressure mounts. April 29, 1996. Keegan appears on Sky Sports, visibly emotional, responding to Alex Ferguson's mind games. "I would love it if we beat them. Love it." His voice cracks. The pressure is visible. Newcastle don't beat them. They finish second. The 12-point lead evaporated. Champions League football followed. St James's Park, the third largest stadium in England, was electric. But they never won anything. Ever. Near misses. Disappointments. Constant managerial changes. Mike Ashley buys the club in 2007. 14 years of chaos begin. Relegations in 2009 and 2016. He treats them like a Sports Direct marketing vehicle. 60,000 fans watching mediocrity every week. Saudi Public Investment Fund takeover in 2021. Unlimited resources. Eddie Howe transforms them. Fourth place in 2023 brings Champions League football back after 2 decades away. They compete in Europe's elite competition, but finish outside the top 4 in 2024. Then, in March 2025, the breakthrough. Newcastle beat Liverpool 2-1 in the EFL Cup final at Wembley. Dan Burn and Alexander Isak score, their first major domestic trophy in 70 years. The 56-year wait for silverware finally ends. Weeks later, they finish 5th in the Premier League and secure Champions League football for 2025-26 through the European performance spot. The trophy. Champions League football back. Eddie Howe justified. For the first time in decades, Newcastle fans can believe again. The cycle of disappointment might finally be broken. History taught them caution, but 2025 gave them silverware and hope. Aston Villa. Rotterdam, 1982. Aston Villa defeat Bayern Munich 1-0, European champions. Peter Wither scores. Tony Barton lifts the trophy. Villa Park, one of England's grandest stadiums, has hosted European royalty and conquered them. 34 years later, they're relegated to the Championship. The decline was steep. The 1990s and 2000s brought mediocrity, mid-table finishes, occasional cup runs. Martin O'Neill briefly revived them. 3 straight 6th-place finishes between 2008 and 2010, flirting with Champions League qualification but never quite breaking through. It didn't last. Relegation in 2016. A founding Premier League member and European champion playing Championship football. Just 17 points. 9 straight defeats. 3 years in the second tier. Financial chaos. Ownership turmoil. Near administration. Steve Bruce's 2018 playoff final loss to Fulham felt crushing. 1-0 at Wembley. Finally, Dean Smith secures promotion via playoffs in 2019. A 10-game winning streak, 109 years for that club record. Jack Grealish carries them through. They beat Derby 2-1, back in the Premier League. Now, under Unai Emery, they've experienced resurrection, then regression. Conference League semi-finals in 2024, then the breakthrough, 4th place. Champions League qualification for the first time since 1983. Back among Europe's elite after 41 years. The 2024-25 Champions League campaign delivered moments of glory. They beat Bayern Munich 1-0, echoing 1982. Reached the quarter-finals. Lost 5-4 on aggregate to PSG despite a heroic fightback. Out, but proud. Trophies remain elusive. No silverware since 1996. The 1982 European Cup feels like ancient history. They're rising again, but the gap between their glorious past and their present reality remains vast.
From lifting European trophies to leaking roofs, from title celebrations to liquidation threats, football's fallen giants prove that legacy means nothing without vision. Hit subscribe, because in football, nobody is too big to fall, and the next collapse is always closer than you think.